So without any delay, I'd like to invite Professor, Cardiosurgeon, Manager, and Social Worker, Dr. Bhagawan Koirala.
Thank you, Salavji. What a wonderful afternoon. Great friend Matthew Ricard and Your Excellency and Excellencies, Professor Kedar Bhakta, and great friends of mine and some unknown faces here. But I'm really humbled and honored to be here today. Honestly, I feel very awkward and probably not really fitting in terms of sharing with you the ideas that hopefully will give some lessons while Matthew is sitting on my side. So, but I'm going to have to do what I'm supposed to do, and I'll probably continue to speak on some of the topics that bother me. Rather than giving the solutions to the problem, I probably would share my observations from my professional practice, and including some of the scientific things that we say are scientific, and that I keep asking questions to myself and try to teach myself. So let it be some of the observations and questions to Matthew, so that he can also address them and maybe give us some solutions to our intellectual problems that I face in my daily practice. If some of the observations are useful too, I'll be more than happy to kind of get that feedback. But rather than giving the solution, I'll probably be asking questions myself. How did you get here? I think Salav very eloquently described on the background of this. This is such an important event after the Nepal is open, and generally the world is open after COVID, and we've all learned lessons of life. And I think it's such an important thing for us to realize that we're able to sit here together, enjoying our normal life, and be able to kind of meet and greet like this. So in itself is a lesson for myself that we should consider that our life is not permanent. Anything we do, that needs to be done on time, with mindfulness, as I learn things from him. I had heard of Matthew a long time ago, and my friend Vijay Kumar had mentioned about him 3 years ago, and we hoped to meet sometime. And then it such happened 10 days ago that I first met him, and in the first 3 minutes, we clicked. And I said, you don't need a lot of introduction to be used to each other and kind of have the same mindset. And that happens with many people, by the way. Sometimes you talk for hours and you just don't relate to each other. Sometimes you just click and you have the same wavelength. And we work for similar causes, same cause, in fact, in a cause of greater humanity. And I shared some of the ideas that I had, and he was so gracious to encourage and agree to continue on collaborating and working together. All my life, I think Salav showed the area. I'm not sure that's my village. My village used to be a little flatter than that. But yes, I come from Palpa, west of Nepal, which is beautiful Tansen. But I was born outside of Tansen, 2 hours walk from Tansen itself, where there was no motor road when I was born. But ever since I came from that township to Kathmandu after my grade 10, I didn't know. I had very little knowledge of English. I couldn't communicate in my college, and I flunked in the first internal assessment of my +2 examination. So I had all that long story, but I would not probably get into that now. I always believed that doing karma, as our some Hindu philosophies also tell, without expecting the results, you just do your karma, and things will fall on their own places. I'm not sure I'm a spiritual man that way. But I need to learn a lot of things, and how do we address some of these things beyond physical, beyond materialistic. But I always believe that doing karma, trying to be helpful to others, and trying to be useful to the society probably does most of my duty. And I kept doing that without trying to understand the philosophies and the spiritualities behind that. I tried to learn humility, but the compassion and empathy, what we call in medical language, And I guess today we'll be enlightened by Matthew on some of these terminologies that I have hard time understanding, but I just have the feeling, trying to be useful, be honest, unconditional service. I think those are the things that I understand. At least I try to understand and try to put in my practice. Today, actually, the topic was selected basically without thinking much. How do we connect each other? I'm a heart guy, he's a mind guy. So we just said, let's call it heart and mind talk. So everybody's free to talk on their own. So I guess that's how the theme of the talk is coined. But I'll try to connect these two functions of our body. Let me tell you that worldwide, including Nepal, we have, as a doctor, I'm obligated to share some of these medical problems that we encounter and the scale of the problems that we have. The two commonest diseases and the problems we have in Nepal. Of course, that applies to any Western world or any other country also, except few maybe. The mental health and the cardiovascular diseases. And mental health, affects more than 20% of our population, worse with our pandemic, because it's tremendously rocketed the problems of mental health, depression, anxiety, and including severe depression leading to surge in the suicide in our society right here. And the other one being cardiovascular diseases. And, in Nepal itself, the non-communicable diseases, what we call, 5 major diseases, heart, cancer, diabetes, kidney problems, and COPD, or these lung issues, cause 71% of all deaths happening in Nepal. That's a massive number. If you add the injuries, which again are either trauma, accidents, suicide, homicide, and falls altogether, it becomes 79% of the deaths in Nepal. It's massive. So I think there's a lot that we need to understand and understand the root causes of those problems and try and avert them if at all possible. And many of those risk factors are related to our mental state, and I think a lot of that is preventable. Of course, not just by probably spiritual exercise, but there are some other things that we need to do. But I think the major diseases are heart conditions that kill about 20% of all deaths. 20% is comprised of cardiac conditions, and another 20% they don't kill, but they put off people off work. High DALY is what we call in public health terminologies, the disease-adjusted life years, meaning that people are not productive, the economy goes down, they're suffering, the quality of life is gone. So I think it's a huge problem in itself, these two conditions. So I think it's worthwhile trying to draw some common linkages between these two. If I become too boring, somebody might just wave hand in the back, and I would try and sneak out easily. But I think there is a lot of commonality between these two conditions. If we talk about the mental health, as a depression, anxiety, especially the hostility, unexpressed hostility, are proven to cause heart attacks. Proven. And there's a number of publications in the world that this high level of noradrenaline level in our body, because either you're too stressed or you don't know how to manage stress, or you have a workload such that you cannot manage that. For whatever reason, the long-standing continuous stress causes high levels of these hormones and the what we call catecholamines in our body. They cause damage of the blood vessels and cause stress to the heart and the high likelihood of having heart attack, high blood pressure, and other consequences, which blood pressure again causes a lot of other problems. And secondly, there are other things. Depression itself may lead to increased tendency to eat, and then lack of interest in exercises. So basically it distorts the whole lifestyle of ours, and then again it leads to poor lifestyle. And there are other direct effects from stress to heart. There are different defined heart conditions that are related directly to the constant stress, not just blood pressure and then possible heart attacks. And anybody who has heart condition, this stress, anxiety, will cause increased morbidity and mortality. So there is a direct effect of mental health on heart conditions. It's proven what I hear and read and see from our literature. Reverse is also true. If we have heart conditions, there will be a lot of effect on our mental state, and we know that. That's very simple. If somebody feels that he is sick, it can cause not just a stroke, but also hypertension would cause you a stroke, but also somebody who feels that his heart is not well, then he would have a lot of pressure on his mental state, causing anxiety, increased anxiety, and probably depression at times, and the quality of life is poor. It's all gone into a vicious cycle. So basically, each of these disease conditions provoke the other side. So I think there is a need to understand the risk factors of all the heart diseases. Of course, as I said, there are other factors that are out of our control, beyond our control, like the age, the genetics, and some of the invariable things that we have to do in our life, pollution that we have to face in our cities. Those are beyond our personal control, but there are a lot of things that we could do to prevent them. So I think in short, there is a close interaction between heart and mind, and I think we need to find some cross-linkage. Well, if we hit, we could break that vicious cycle. And I think the topic today would be largely focusing on how would you influence your state of mind, and I guess there will be a lot more coming from Matthew. But I would really like to hear how do you help to break this vicious cycle of mind-heart, confounding effect on each other's disease. Now, I have another reason to be here, and I applaud Matthew's contribution in the medical science itself. And Salav probably forgot to mention that during his introduction, and I have not really read that manual, honestly, but Matthew has written a manual on how to do pediatric meditation. So he's well versed, and in a way, scientist himself, how to train, educate children to be mindful, to do the meditation. So I think it relates to our work as to how to keep our young children and adolescents spiritually healthy. And by the way, did you mention that Matthew had a PhD in molecular genetics in 1970s? And he did a lot of neurological research in neurological sciences, worked with a lot of big scientists in US and in France. His father was a philosopher. Of course, that seems to be inherited across. But that kind of gives the authenticity of whatever we're going to hear and listen. I feel really awkward standing longer. You gave me 30 minutes. I'm going to pass on 15 more minutes to you so that we can hear more. So I would rather answer your questions. I feel comfortable. I'm a technical guy. I was so poor in writing essays in my childhood. They asked me to write an essay on a cow. And I said, it has 4 legs, it gives us milk. And then I stopped. I don't know anything else. And I stopped in grade 6. I'm poor in writing essays. I cannot kind of amplify things like that. So I'm a bullet point guy. I remember points. This works, this does not, this is right, this is wrong, and this is how I do, and I'm a technical guy. So I would rather stick to my bullet points and probably leave the function of explanation, convincing, and then more to Matthew. All I can say is, somebody said, if you want to find yourself, is the best way to find yourself to lose yourself in other service. Kind of very profound expression. And I, as a growing professional, I try to help people unconditionally, that's for sure. But I think there was something that I had kind of some sort of selfishness in myself that, okay, I do this, I would grow, I would have name, and no monetary thing, but still. Now I realize truly as I grow older, probably because of the new initiatives that we were contemplating on a big scale, if you focus on yourself, you start suffering more. That's my own personal experience. You have more time to talk about your tiny little things in family, with the neighborhood. You fight for nothing. You spend time thinking about others. Every time you go out and work with community, you see a lot more people suffering than yourself. And that is a lesson. And I've learned, if you start working for others, you forget about your problems. And I think you are happier because then you spend time thinking about others. And that's a lifetime lesson that I've learned. If that relates to you, probably would be useful. And I would probably I'll wrap up my, my talk, if you like this, by quoting a Singaporean plastic surgeon. Young, talented, brilliant, US-trained plastic surgeon, handsome, in Singapore. That was a big story. And, he was rich, he was practicing, made a lot of money. I've shared that story some time ago, and that was published. And unfortunately, this guy got cancer at the age of, late 30s or early 40s. His career was doomed. He was flourishing. He had everything that he wanted materialistically. And I remember him saying, I didn't realize that life will be so short. I don't know what to do. And there was no way any medicine would kind of keep him longer. I didn't really realize that life would be so short. If I knew, I would probably live a different way. And he said, and he was thinking about, how am I going to die? What would be my last days look like, feel like? And how do I look in front of the public? How would they perceive about my work, life, and the death? And he concluded for himself, and I think that's what I think is right for us to do. If I knew how to die, then I would know how to live now. So I think that's something that I put forward as an agenda for discussion and thinking through. With this, I would probably stop here and invite my great friend here, and I'd rather listen to you. And thank you very much. Great to have you all here. Thank you.